It's alright.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Yo guys, what is up? Max here on a Borderlands video, and today we're doing a tier list for all of the legendary weapons in DLC 3. Now there are a ton of weapons in DLC 3, and I wanted to do a little tier list slash ranking because it can get overwhelming, and I want you guys to know what weapons are worth farming and what weapons aren't worth farming. Now, these are my opinions, and I'm just kind of stating how I think these weapons perform across all characters. Maybe a weapon I'll rank poorly performs awesome on your super optimized build for that weapon, but it doesn't perform very well across all characters, so I'm trying to keep all characters in mind. If you guys do enjoy the video, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. And with that, let's get right into it. Alright, so first on our list is the Beacon. Now, I'd be placing these weapons in our tiers of that's a lot of damage, good amount of damage, decent amount of damage, some damage, and where's the damage? Now, the Beacon, I love it. One of my new favorite pistols. It's basically the Hellshock, but better, and it has a reload nova. This works really well on Moze with the splash damage, and also works really well on Zane with his clone. Definitely one of the top weapons, and I definitely recommend you guys getting one. The next weapon is the Bright Side. Now, the Bright Side can come at the highest pellet count I've gotten is times 20, and it's not very good, but it's not bottom of the barrel, so I'm going to be putting it in some damage. You can get it to work, and I actually have made a flak build with this thing, but overall, not great. Now, next up, we have the Chandelier. The Chandelier is like a recursion if the recursion didn't kill anything. Do not like this weapon. I do not recommend using this weapon, and we're going to be putting it in the lowest tier. Now, we have an amazing weapon, the Complex Root. The Complex Root is, if you're playing Ties That Bind Amara, probably the best weapon, if not one of the best weapons in the game for you. However, it's very easy to kill yourself with if you guys haven't used this weapon or haven't messed around with it. Having area of effect damage rolls on the Complex Root slash on your gear, if you're using toward cross promotion or area of effect damage, you can very easily kill yourself with this thing. So while its damage is very good, it does have some trade-offs in being able to kill yourself, but I am going to be putting in that's a lot of damage because I hit for 1 billion damage with an unanointed one, so definitely worth farming. Now, we have the Contained Blast, a pretty awesome Torgue Assault Rifle. This thing isn't anything too special. It does solid damage, and it is a good Torgue Assault Rifle. I'm going to be putting it in good amount of damage. It's definitely not up there with the best of the weapons, but it's solid and it's reliable. Next up, we got the Dowsing Rod. Now, Dowsing Rod on a Moze build where you can infinite fire grenades is pretty awesome, but for pretty much all of the other characters, it's very subpar, and for that reason, I'm going to be putting it in a decent amount of damage. It's definitely better than the Bright Side, but I wouldn't put it higher or with the Contained Blast. Next up, we got the Flipper. Now, you guys rated, when I put out a poll to the YouTube channel, I think it was like 43 to 48% of you guys said the Flipper was the best SMG in the new DLC. Not the best SMG, the best weapon in the new DLC. This weapon is awesome across all the characters. It truly shines on Splash Moze builds. Super strong, if not the best weapon you could be using on Moze right now. Definitely get yourself a Flipper if you can. On the other characters, I don't love it as much, but it is very strong. Its big trade-off is its time that it takes to load up to full damage, aka firing 9 pellets. When it starts out firing 1 and you have to fire for a little bit time to get those 9 pellets. With a Moze build that can sustain the ammo, this is probably one of the best weapons in the game, but on other characters, it's not as great. Next up, we have the Frequency. Pretty cool mellow-on shotgun. It doesn't perform that well. I would put it with decent amount of damage with the Dowsing Rod. I think it's a little bit better than the Bright Side, but it's definitely not that great. Next up, we got the Gargoyle. Gargoyle is awesome. I originally didn't think that this pistol was going to be very good because it's corrosive locked, and that hurts weapons. Having only being available into one element definitely hurts weapons, especially when matching elements is so important in this game. However, the Gargoyle does a crap ton of damage and splash damage, And if you can get some other elements in there, if you're using it with 150 rad or some sort of different elemental ASEs on your shield and grenade, you can make this thing work for you in any situation. I'm going to be putting it in That's a Lot of Damage. It truly is an awesome weapon. Next up, we have the Herald. Now, Herald works decently well across all characters. It's a little underwhelming compared to what it was in Borderlands 2, but it is still a strong weapon. I'm going to be putting it in good amount of damage. I think that's fair with the Contain Bless. I wouldn't put it up there with these weapons. You can make it work really well with the Ties That Bind Amara build, but then again, Ties That Bind Amara makes anything good. Next up, we have the Light Show. Light Show, I personally think that the Light Show is the best weapon in the game. The best weapon from this DLC across all characters. Now, with the right build, the complex route will outperform it on Amara. With the right Moze build, the flipper will outperform it on Moze. But across all characters, this weapon is super strong. There hasn't been a build that I've tried with the Light Show that it hasn't performed well on. So definitely keep your eyes on the Light Show. Next up, the Miscreant. I'm going to be putting the Miscreant in good amount of damage. It's awesome on Moze builds that can sustain its fire rate, especially with all of the splash damage that it's doing. But without Moze, I don't like this weapon as much. It is strong, and you guys should definitely pick it up, but I do think it shines the most on Moze, and I wouldn't put it as consistent across all the characters. Next up, we have the Mother 2. I'm going to be putting the Mother 2 with Where's the Damage. I don't get this weapon. You can do a lot of damage if you perfectly use your throw and have the beam perfectly sit still on an enemy that is not moving ever, but for the most part, Mother 2 is not worth using. Next up, we have the Narc. Now, I haven't used the Narc much on the other characters, but I have used it on Amara with Ties That Bind. It's honestly pretty great, but you could use any weapon with Ties That Bind. I do like the Narc. If you guys didn't know, the Narc is going to get more damage if you reload your magazine with more bullets in it. Unfortunately, this effect caps, so you can't get as much magazine size as possible and just keep getting more damage. It's decent. I'm going to be putting it in a decent amount of damage. I think it's a solid spot for it. Plumage, not a very good weapon. I've heard people like this thing. I personally don't. I can't even get it to hit enemies, and I'll be shooting multiple rockets, and I can't even kill any trash mobs with it. I really do not like the Plumage. I think it's bad. I do not think it's worth your time. Next up, we have the Proprietary License. I love the Proprietary License on Amara with the stickies and everything that happens with it. It's so strong. The Proprietary License is going to get all of your effects of Torg with the stickies, Jacobs with the crit, Malawan with locked element, all with the burst fire. It's really strong. I haven't found to love it on other characters as much as I love it with Amara and Ties That Bind. And you guys rated it as your least favorite out of the top 5, and I didn't have some of these weapons here, so I'm going to be putting it a good amount of damage. Next up, the Robin's Call. Robin's Call is in a similar spot, I believe, to the Proprietary License, where it's super good on flak. Awesome flak weapon, but I don't think it's that great on other characters that aren't flak, so that's why I'm going to be putting it there. Next up, we have the Satisfaction. Now, the Satisfaction is not very satisfying. It looks like it's going to do a crap ton of damage. It has a very slow fire rate, but it just doesn't hold up, and I really don't think it's worth using. For the most part, there's so many other better rocket launchers, the Backburner, the Plague Bearer, that are way better than the Satisfaction. Even for stickies, there's better options, so I do not recommend using the Satisfaction. Next up, we have the Spade. Now, the Spade, I'm going to be putting it a decent amount of damage. I like this weapon. It's insane if you're using it on Moze with some for the road, or flak, basically as a souped up, I forget the name, but sticky shotgun. This Spade is solid. I've mainly used it on Amara, and I thought it was solid. I didn't love this thing. I don't think I like it as much as some of these weapons up here, so I'm going to be putting the Spade down here in decent amount of damage. Next up, we have the Stone Thrower. Now, the Stone Thrower is the Jacob's Assault Rifle that is going to ricochet all of your rounds. On a Ties That Bind Amara build, this thing performs really well, but on the other classes, it just kind of lacks a little bit of damage. It's a fun weapon to use, but it's definitely not worth the damage. I would probably put it with the decent amount of damage or some damage. I'm going to be putting it a decent amount of damage because it's solid. I wouldn't put it with the bright side. The Blank or the Blanc, I don't personally like this weapon. I know that you can build up a lot of damage, but the time that you're using to build up damage, if you did not know, the Blank, when you switch firing modes, you're going to be able to stack up weapon damage, and you can get a decent amount of weapon damage on this thing, but in the time that you're going to be taking to stack up weapon damage, you could have already killed it, pretty much any enemy with it already, so I'm going to be putting it in the some damage with the bright side. It can kill enemies, but I wouldn't recommend it. I don't think you should be using it. Next up is the Bloom. Now, I'm kind of torn on this weapon of where to put it. It's a really awesome feeling weapon, and it kind of feels awesome to use, but it just doesn't perform as well as I wished it had. Across all the characters, I find it having somewhat of a mediocre performance, and so I'm going to be putting it in decent amount of damage. I think it's fine. It's a cool weapon. It's definitely awesome, but in terms of performance across all the characters, I think there are better options. It's a strong pistol, don't get me wrong, but yeah, these are my opinions. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe. The link to this tier list will be in the description. If you want to make your own tier list, you can download this and make it, send it to your friends. You guys can share with me on Twitter what your rankings would be, and this will also be in the Discord if you want to download it. Guys, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I will catch you guys in the next one. Take care. Peace.